What was ultimately the biggest deal that you ever closed in commercial real estate?
$45 million retail property in New York City. Pause. I did a bigger deal. I forgot about that.
Let's do it. Today we're going to be talking about how you can break into the commercial real estate industry in today's world. We're super pumped to be here with Kevin Salmon, who's a commercial real estate broker.
I've been in the brokerage business before you guys were born. 1999, I joined a firm in New York City. Knew nothing about real estate. I had dreams of playing basketball, and I ended up in the restaurant business instead. I opened a restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant at that. At the time when I opened it, no one was ready for that stuff. I met a guy who told me about real estate. Real estate people own, other than their homes, they own these buildings. I had no idea. So did my research, and I said, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And I jumped right into it. I was fortunate to end up in a company that had been around since 1971, and they hired me with no experience, no knowledge, and they gave me a shot. I spent 10 years of my career at that firm until I left in 2009 to start my own.
What was ultimately the biggest deal that you ever closed in commercial real estate?
Gosh, and that one took me 2 years. It was a $45 million retail property in New York City. It's called a retail condo, and it was occupied by HSBC Bank. The rental income, I think, was $2.5 million. We started at, I wanted to say we started at $55 million. And I didn't want to take it on at $55 million because I thought it was overpriced. Pause. I did a bigger deal. I forgot about that.
Let's do it, yeah.
Okay, it was a very interesting deal. I did not list it exclusively, but I developed a relationship with the U.S. Marshals. And it was a portfolio of apartment buildings in the Bronx. And the Marshals have a criteria. It's a closed bid process. I knew I could find a buyer for this one. But the process, whoever had the highest offer, even if it was a penny more, the Marshals will choose that person. Doesn't matter the buyer's ability to close. Whoever offered more owned the deal. We submitted an offer. I called a client from Brooklyn, and 2 days later, Marshals got back to me and said, you had the highest offer, and we won the bid. $73,500,550, somewhere around that number.
Being in charge of a brokerage, what's your day-to-day like?
My day begins probably around 5:30, and I'm at the office by 6:15, the latest. And I try to get the guys in there as early as possible. I leave the office about 7:30, 8 o'clock every night. And I have weekly meetings, individual meetings, to talk about the previous week, what they did good and what they thought they did wrong. It's the same process each week, figuring out how I can help them build their business. Because I've been doing this a long time, 2 decades, so I've seen it all.
What would be your first tip to someone who's trying to break into the industry?
Brokers in this business, they're not transactional. They are relationship centric. You want to go back dealing with the same clients you've done business with before. When I started, the guy who hired me said to me, if you were to land 5 active clients, you're set. And it took me a while to do that, but that's exactly what happened. When I was told by the manager at the time who hired me, he said, there's no salary. My response to him was, I want it, because no salary means that there's no ceiling. I can make as much money as possible. What I did, I don't really suggest anyone do this, because I started at 5:30 in the morning, arriving at the office, staying till 6 p.m. Then I went to a job, working at night at a restaurant. And I worked at a restaurant making, I think it was 10 or 12 bucks an hour. And I also had a job selling vehicles on weekends, selling cars. I was selling Nissans at the time. So I can't recommend someone try to hold down 3 jobs at the same time, but I did. So maybe you can do it as well. But yeah, you need financial support so you can focus on your business. And knowing that there's no salary, you're going to say to yourself, okay, there's no salary, so that means unlimited. I can make millions and millions of dollars doing this business.
So we have some pictures, some plaques up here on the wall. These are some of your kind of past commercial real estate deals that you've done. Can you just kind of break down a couple of these deals and kind of how you were able to go about them and end up closing the deals?
Sure. It goes back to August 22nd, 2001. This was my first transaction. It was in Binghamton, New York. And it took me almost 2 years to do my first deal. But this one, obviously I had to frame because it took so long, process of being in commercial real estate. And having this deal to be my first deal was amazing, because this was the check, $54,000 in 2001, which was pretty impressive. At the time, I was focused on selling apartment buildings in the Bronx. This was my first listings, as you can see here in the beginning. And I sold all these buildings in 2001 for a couple $100,000. They're probably worth millions now. But I can tell you that the fees that I made on these, I was able to buy my first deal using the commission earned from these transactions.
Like, how important have relationships been to your success in real estate so far?
Relationships are the most important thing in this business. As I told a young man a week ago, I can pick up the phone today and called someone who I did business with in 2005. And they would say, "Hey, Kevin, good to hear from you," because I developed a relationship that goes on for a lifetime. You always hear the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and it is fact.
For someone who does kind of struggle with networking and building those lasting relationships, what advice would you tell to someone to really strengthen that aspect of their career?
You have to find your strong points. What are you strong at? My strong point, building relationships, understanding an individual. So learn more about the individual and use that to your advantage to figure out if that's something you can relate to. For example, many years ago, I met this gentleman who became my mentor. He's no longer around. His name is Julian Studley. And Mr. Studley, I tried to get to him so bad. I kept calling his office, home, no response. I even sent him a letter. I sent him letters. He owned multiple buildings in the Bronx at the time. No response. And somehow I discovered that he was a poker player. I knew nothing about poker. I was able to get to his secretary, and she actually scheduled a meeting for us. When I met with him, first thing I said to him was, "So I hear you're a poker expert, and I also discovered that you were 110 out of thousands in the World Poker Tour." And he said, "Do you play poker?" I said, "No, but I would love for you to teach me." James, the next minute, he invited me to his house on a Tuesday. He said, "I play poker at my house every Tuesday night with a group of guys." He invited me over. I sat and I watched them, learned as much as I could. Then the following week, he invited me over to play with him and his wife. And probably 3 weeks later, he hired me to sell $30 million in real estate.
What is the process like of trying to go and work for a commercial real estate license? What kind of education or what do you have to go through in order to make that happen?
The licensing portion of this business is the exact same. You go to the same real estate school for residential or commercial. It's a function of your ability, what you're able to stomach, because again, the process is challenging on the commercial side. And we tell everyone that, it's going to take easily 6 to 12 months before you close your first deal. You could jump into residential and close your first deal within a week because you may have a friend or cousin may want to sell or buy a place and they might use you. Not the same in commercial.
So another question I had was, a lot of people often start out in residential. They want to sell homes, maybe they get into luxury real estate. But what is that transition like of going from residential to commercial?
I don't recommend it because the process is completely different. In residential, it could take you 30 to 60 days to close a deal, from renting an apartment, selling a home. In commercial, the process is easily, from your listing to closing, is easily 120 days. So when you start out in residential, unless you've accumulated a tremendous amount of dollars and you're ready to make the transition to commercial, I would recommend it. That's the only way. But I would not recommend, I've sold a couple of deals, I've sold a couple of homes, now I'm ready to go to commercial. You start out in commercial.
When we first met, one of the first things that you had told us is that commercial real estate is really one of the only industries where you can make the same as like a top athlete, a top entertainer. How much can someone really make in commercial real estate if they do it right?
It doesn't happen overnight, but within 5 years, if you're doing the business correctly, building database, building relationships, presenting proposals, becoming the expert, by year 5, you're making 7 figures.
Yeah.
Without question. After a decade, you're making probably $10 million or more.
That's incredible.
And this is true. I have it proven. I have it documented.
Yeah. What was your best year in particular that you ever did?
My year on the brokerage side was excellent, but not as good as the guys today because the technology that they have, we didn't have that. I literally had to knock on doors. We had an owner's manual we would go through to find information. Here, you could just go online and Google and find so much information about an owner. So information is gold. We didn't have that gold laying around. So my best year, I think we did $2 million.
Wow.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's video and learning about how you can break into the commercial real estate industry in today's world. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Where can everybody find you?
I do have an Instagram, Kevin Mark Salmon, just like the fish, and LinkedIn, Kevin Salmon.
And if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to tap in here to learn how you can get started in wholesaling real estate in today's world.